I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of my apartment window and watched the city lights flicker across downtown Phoenix. 28 years old, and I had just signed the closing papers on my first house. A real house with a backyard, 3 bedrooms, and a mortgage that belonged entirely to me. The keys sat heavy in my pocket, their metal edges digging through the fabric of my jeans as a constant reminder that I had actually done it. My phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting congratulations from my coworker Patricia, who had been following my house hunting journey for 6 months. Instead, my mother's name lit up the screen. I hesitated before answering. Our conversations had become increasingly tense over the past year, ever since my younger sister Vanessa dropped out of college for the 3rd time. "Hello? Rona, your father and I need to talk to you." Her voice carried that clipped tone she used when delivering ultimatums. "Can you come by the house tomorrow evening?" I shifted my weight, still staring out at the glittering skyline. "I'm actually pretty busy tomorrow. I'm moving into my new place, remember? I told you about it last month." Silence stretched between us. Then, "You went through with that? Rona, we discussed this. You should have waited." My fingers tightened around the phone. We had not discussed anything. She had expressed her opinion, which was that I should continue renting and help Vanessa pay for another attempt at college. I had smiled, nodded, and proceeded with my own plans exactly as I had been doing since I was 15 years old. "I've been saving for this for years, Mom. The timing was right. Your sister needs support right now. She's going through a difficult transition." Vanessa was always going through a difficult transition. At 24, she had cycled through 4 different career aspirations, racked up substantial credit card debt, and moved back into our parents' house twice. Each time, our parents had bailed her out, smoothed over her mistakes, and assured her that she just needed to find her passion. Meanwhile, I had worked 2 jobs through high school, put myself through community college while working full-time at a medical supply warehouse, and climbed my way up to a logistics coordinator position that finally paid me enough to save aggressively. I had eaten ramen for dinner more nights than I could count. I had skipped vacations, driven a car that was older than I was, and watched my savings account grow with a devotion that bordered on religious. "Mom, I have to go. I'll call you later this week." I ended the call before she could protest. Outside, a plane descended toward the airport, its lights blinking in rhythmic patterns. I thought about the house waiting for me across town, the house I had toured 7 times before making an offer. It had good bones, the inspector said. The roof was only 5 years old. The neighborhood was quiet, filled with young families and retirees who actually maintained their yards. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Vanessa. "Heard you bought a house. Must be nice having everything handed to you." I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Everything handed to me. I had started working at a fast food restaurant when I was 15, lying about my availability for school activities because I needed every possible shift. At 16, I added weekend shifts at a grocery store. I had missed prom because I was working a double shift. I had missed my high school graduation party because I was saving the money I would have spent on a dress. Vanessa had gotten a car for her 16th birthday. I had bought mine at 19 with money I had saved for 2 years. Vanessa had gone to the state university with our parents covering tuition, room, and board. I had taken classes at community college while working 40 hours a week, finishing my associate degree in 3 years instead of 2 because I could only afford part-time enrollment. But sure. Everything had been handed to me. I did not respond to her text. Instead, I pulled up the photos I had taken of the house on my phone. The living room had large windows that let in afternoon light. The kitchen needed updating, but the appliances worked. The backyard had a small patio where I could put a table and chairs. It was mine. All mine. The next evening, I hauled boxes from my apartment to a rented truck. Patricia showed up with coffee and helped me wrap dishes in newspaper. "Your parents coming to help?" she asked, taping up a box marked bedroom closet. "Didn't ask them." She gave me a knowing look, but did not press. Patricia was 43 and had been through 2 divorces. She understood family complications without needing detailed explanations. We finished loading the truck by 8 p.m. My apartment looked strange, stripped of furniture, just carpet indentations where my couch had been, and nail holes in the walls from picture frames. I had lived here for 4 years, watching my savings account balance climb, while other people my age took trips to Mexico and bought new cars. Every financial decision had been calculated, deliberate, focused on one singular goal. Patricia drove the truck while I followed in my car. The house was in a neighborhood called Desert Bloom, about 20 minutes from my current apartment and 30 minutes from the warehouse where I worked. The streets were lined with mature mesquite trees, and most houses had desert landscaping with rock gardens and native plants. Mine was a pale yellow ranch style with dark brown trim, built in 1987, but well maintained by the previous owners. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of the vanilla candles the previous owners had burned during the final showing. The living room stretched before me, empty and echoing. My footsteps sounded loud against the tile floor. "It has good energy," Patricia announced, walking through the space with her coffee cup. "I can see you being happy here." We unloaded the truck in stages, taking breaks to drink water and rest our backs. By midnight, all my boxes were stacked in their designated rooms, and my furniture was arranged in approximate positions. Patricia left around 12:30 a.m., making me promise to text her when I woke up, so she knew I had not been murdered by a home invasion. I stood in the center of my new living room after she left. The house settled around me, creaking softly as the temperature dropped. I had done it. Without help, without loans from family, without taking shortcuts. I had worked and saved and sacrificed, and now I owned property. Actual property with my name on the deed. My phone rang at 7 a.m., jolting me awake on the air mattress I had inflated in the master bedroom. My mother's name appeared on the screen again. "Rona, we need you to come to the house today. This is important." I rubbed sleep from my eyes. "What's going on?" "Just come over. Your father and I need to discuss something with you, and bring your paperwork from the house purchase." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "What paperwork?" "The deed, the mortgage papers, all of it. Bring everything." She hung up before I could ask more questions. I lay on the air mattress, staring up at the ceiling fan that slowly rotated above me. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the distant sound of a dog barking somewhere in the neighborhood. I drove to my parents' house in Scottsdale that afternoon. The development where they lived was one of those planned communities with an HOA that regulated mailbox colors and lawn maintenance schedules. Their house was a 2-story southwestern style, with a 3-car garage and a pool in the backyard. My father had retired early from his career in pharmaceutical sales, and my mother managed a boutique part-time more for social engagement than income. Vanessa's car was parked in the driveway. Of course, I grabbed the folder containing my house documents from the passenger seat and walked to the front door. My mother opened it before I could knock. "Come in. We're in the living room." My father sat in his leather recliner, reading glasses perched on his nose as he examined something on his tablet. Vanessa sprawled on the couch, her expression a mix of smugness and vindication. I felt the first whisper of real unease. "Sit down, Rona." My mother gestured to the love seat. "We need to talk about your recent purchase." I remained standing. "My house? What about it?" My father set down his tablet. "Your mother and I have been discussing your situation, and we feel you made this purchase without proper consideration for the family's needs." "The family's needs?" I repeated slowly. "It's my house. I bought it with my money." "Money you earned while living under our roof for 18 years, my mother interjected. "We provided for you, gave you a foundation. You owe us consideration." I looked at Vanessa, who was examining her fingernails with studied disinterest. Pieces started clicking together. What is this really about? My father cleared his throat. Your sister needs stability right now. She's been looking for a place to live, somewhere affordable where she can focus on finding her path. We think your house would be perfect for her. The room seemed to tilt slightly. You think my house would be perfect for Vanessa? You bought a 3-bedroom, my mother said. That's far too much space for one person. Vanessa could live there, pay you minimal rent until she gets on her feet. It makes financial sense. I laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp bark of sound that made all 3 of them flinch. You want me to hand over the house I just bought to Vanessa, after I worked 2 jobs for 13 years to save for it? Not hand over, my father said. Share it. Be a family. I worked at a fast food restaurant until my hands smelled like fryer grease permanently, I said, my voice rising. I worked overnight shifts at a warehouse. I ate boxed macaroni for dinner 4 nights a week. And you want me to give my house to Vanessa, who has never held a job for more than 6 months? Vanessa finally looked up. See? This is exactly your problem. You think you're better than me because you're willing to be miserable. The words hung in the air between us. I stared at my sister, at the designer purse sitting beside her on the couch that I knew my parents had bought her last month, at the manicured nails she had just gotten done at a salon I could not afford to visit. Willing to be miserable, I repeated. Is that what you think hard work is? You act like being responsible is some kind of virtue, Vanessa said, sitting up straighter. Meanwhile, you have no life, no friends except that woman from work, no relationship. You just save money and judge everyone else. Girls, that's enough, my mother interjected. Rona, we're not asking you to give Vanessa the house. We're asking you to share it. Let her live there for a while. Help her get established. She's your sister. I turned to my mother. When I needed help with college tuition, you told me to take out loans. When I needed a car, you told me to save up. But Vanessa gets everything handed to her, and I'm supposed to just accept that? We did what we thought was best for you, my father said. You were always independent. You didn't need as much support. I didn't need support. Or you just didn't want to give it to me because it was easier to let me struggle. The silence that followed was heavy with years of unspoken resentment. I had always been the capable one, the one who figured things out on her own. Vanessa had always been the one who needed help, guidance, financial bailouts. And somehow, I had become the villain for refusing to perpetuate that dynamic. Here's what's going to happen, my mother said, her voice taking on that authoritative tone she had used throughout my childhood. You're going to let Vanessa move into your house. She'll pay you $300 a month, which is more than fair given the family circumstances. I stared at her. $300 a month? The mortgage is $1,500, plus utilities, insurance, property tax. Then you'll cover the rest. Consider it an investment in your sister's future. Something shifted inside me then. A lifetime of swallowing disappointment, of being told I was selfish for wanting acknowledgement of my efforts, of watching my sister receive opportunities I had been denied while being lectured about family obligations. I felt it crystallize into a cold, hard certainty. No. My father frowned. Rona, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. The answer is no. Vanessa is not moving into my house. Not for $300 a month, not for any amount of money. It's my house. My mother's expression hardened. You're being incredibly selfish, after everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked. Please list it out. I'm genuinely curious. The question seemed to catch her off guard. She sputtered for a moment before saying, We raised you, fed you, clothed you, gave you a home. Basic parental obligations. What else? This is ridiculous, Vanessa said, standing up. You know what? Keep your stupid house. I hope you're happy living there alone, being bitter about your pathetic life. She stormed out, and I heard her car start in the driveway moments later. My parents watched me with matching expressions of disappointment and anger. You're making a mistake, my father said quietly. Family is supposed to help each other. Family is supposed to support each other's accomplishments, I replied, not tear them down out of jealousy and entitlement. I left before they could respond, climbing into my car with hands that shook slightly. I sat in their driveway for a long moment, watching the sun set behind their perfectly maintained house with its perfectly manicured lawn and its perfectly appointed interior that had never known what it meant to struggle. Then, I drove home, to my house. My imperfect, needs some updates, hard-won, completely mine house. I spent the next week unpacking boxes and arranging furniture. Patricia came over twice to help, and we assembled a bookshelf from a flat-pack store while drinking wine and complaining about the incomprehensible instructions. Work continued as usual. I coordinated shipments, managed inventory databases, and solved logistical problems for pharmaceutical supplies that needed to reach hospitals across the Southwest. My parents did not call. Neither did Vanessa. The silence felt like a cold war, but I found I did not miss the constant criticism and manipulation. I woke up each morning in my house, made coffee in my kitchen, and went to work from my address. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reorganizing the warehouse receiving bay, I received an email notification from the county court system. My heart sank before I even opened it. My parents had filed a lawsuit against me. The claim stated that they had provided substantial financial support throughout my life, with the understanding that I would assist family members in need. They were seeking either partial ownership of the house or financial compensation equivalent to 20 years of child-rearing expenses. I read the legal document 3 times, sitting in my car in the warehouse parking lot. The lawsuit detailed their investment in raising me, including itemized estimates for food, clothing, housing, and education. They claimed I had entered into an implied contract by accepting their support, and now owed restitution in the form of sharing my property with Vanessa. It was insane. It was also very real, with a court date set for 6 weeks away. I called the only lawyer I knew, a woman named Beth, who sometimes came into the warehouse to pick up supplies for her father's medical equipment. She listened to my explanation, asked me to email her the court documents, and called me back an hour later. This is one of the more creative attempts at legal manipulation I've seen, she said. But it's not without precedent. There have been cases where parents claimed implied contracts with adult children. Most get dismissed, but not all. My stomach dropped. So they could win? It's unlikely, but I've learned never to say never in family court. Do you have documentation of your earnings and savings? Everything. Bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns. I kept it all. Good. Start putting together a timeline. Every job you worked, every dollar you saved. We need to demonstrate beyond doubt that you purchased this house entirely with your own funds and labor. I spent the next 2 weeks building my case. Every evening after work, I sat at my kitchen table with file folders spread across the surface, documenting 13 years of financial independence. Bank statements from my first checking account, opened when I was 16, with $200 from a month of burger flipping. Pay stubs from the grocery store where I had worked weekends and summers. Tax returns showing steady employment since I was legally allowed to file. Beth reviewed everything with methodical precision. She was in her late 30s, with sharp eyes and an even sharper understanding of family law. Her office was in a modest building downtown, decorated with photographs of her 3 children and framed court documents from cases she had won. Your documentation is excellent, she said during our 3rd meeting. But I need you to understand something. Family court judges have wide discretion. They can consider factors beyond strict legal precedent. The emotional angle your parents are playing could resonate with someone who believes family obligations supersede individual achievement. I gripped the arms of the chair. So even though I earned every cent, I might lose my house because I'm supposed to sacrifice for my sister? Not lose it entirely, but potentially be forced to share ownership or provide financial compensation. It depends on how the judge interprets implied family contracts. She leaned back in her chair. Tell me about your relationship with your parents. Not just recent history. Everything. I talked for an hour. I described working 2 jobs through high school while Vanessa got an allowance. I explained how my parents had paid for Vanessa's university education, while telling me to take out loans for community college. I detailed every birthday, where Vanessa received expensive gifts, while I got gift cards for practical stores. I outlined the pattern of enabling and expectation that had defined my family dynamics for as long as I could remember. Beth took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. Here's what I see. Your parents practiced differential treatment throughout your childhood and adolescence. They consistently provided more financial support to your sister while expecting you to be self-sufficient. Now they're attempting to retroactively claim you owe them for basic parenting expenses. It's manipulative, and frankly, it makes me angry. But can we win? We can present a compelling case. Whether the judge rules in your favor depends on factors I can't control. She pulled out a legal pad. We need witness testimony. Anyone who can speak to your work history, your financial independence, the lack of parental support. Who can we call? I thought about it. Patricia, obviously. My former manager from the grocery store, a man named Dennis who had written me a college recommendation letter years ago. A professor from community college who had helped me navigate financial aid. My current supervisor at the warehouse, a stern woman named Judith, who nonetheless respected my work ethic. Also, Beth continued, we need to consider your sister. Will she testify? For my parents? Absolutely. Then we need to be prepared for whatever she might say. Think about the narrative they'll construct. Poor Vanessa, struggling to find her way, while selfish Rona hoards resources. They'll paint you as the privileged sister who refuses to help family in need. I laughed bitterly. Privileged? Because I worked 80-hour weeks. Perception matters in court. We need to control the narrative. Beth made more notes. I want you to document every instance of your parents supporting Vanessa financially over the past 5 years. Every car payment they made, every credit card they paid off, every rent check they covered. Can you do that? I can try. Vanessa posts everything on social media. New purse, weekend trip, nice dinner out. I can probably piece together a timeline. Do it. And Rona? Beth's expression softened slightly. Prepare yourself emotionally. Family court can get ugly. They're going to say things designed to hurt you. Your parents will testify about what a difficult child you were, how ungrateful you've been. Your sister will likely paint herself as a victim of your success. You need to be ready for that. I nodded, but my hands were shaking when I left her office. That night, I sat in my living room with my laptop and went through Vanessa's social media accounts. 5 years of posts documenting a lifestyle I could never have afforded. Designer handbags, weekend trips to San Diego and Las Vegas, expensive brunches at trendy restaurants, concert tickets, new clothes for every season. And interspersed between the materialism were captions about struggle, about finding herself, about how hard life was when your family did not understand you. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. I created a spreadsheet. Dates, items, estimated costs based on retail prices. By the time I finished, I had documented approximately $60,000 in parental support Vanessa had received over 5 years. Meanwhile, my parents had given me exactly nothing during the same period. Not for birthdays, not for Christmas, not for emergencies. The court date approached. I took the day off work, dressing in the most professional outfit I owned. Black slacks, a navy blazer, and simple flats. Beth met me outside the courthouse at 8:30 a.m. Remember, she said as we walked through the metal detectors, stay calm. Answer questions directly and honestly. Don't let them bait you into emotional responses. The facts are on your side. The courtroom was smaller than I had imagined, with wood-paneled walls and fluorescent lighting that gave everything a slightly sickly cast. My parents sat on one side with their attorney, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Vanessa sat behind them, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The judge was a woman in her early 60s named Judge Morrison. She reviewed the case documents with a neutral expression while we waited in tense silence. Finally, she looked up. This is a petition for financial compensation or property rights based on parental investment in child rearing. The plaintiffs claim an implied contract. Let's proceed with opening statements. My parents' attorney stood. His presentation was smooth, practiced, designed to tug at heartstrings. He talked about sacrifice and duty, about parents who had devoted years to raising 2 daughters, about reasonable expectations of gratitude and reciprocity. He presented my parents as wounded and betrayed, their generosity thrown back in their faces by an ungrateful daughter who refused to help her struggling sister. Then Beth stood. Her opening statement was factual and precise. She outlined my work history, my financial independence, and the documented disparity in parental support between Vanessa and me. She presented it not as a sob story, but as a timeline of facts that spoke for themselves. The testimony began with my father. He sat in the witness box looking dignified and hurt, the perfect image of a disappointed parent. My parents' attorney led him through a series of questions about raising 2 daughters, providing for our needs, ensuring we had opportunities to succeed. Did you treat both daughters equally? The attorney asked. We treated them according to their needs, my father replied. Rona was always very independent. She didn't need as much guidance. Vanessa required more support because she was still finding her path. And when Rona purchased a house, what was your reaction? We were proud of her accomplishment, but we also hoped she would recognize her good fortune and help her sister, who hasn't had the same advantages. Beth stood for cross-examination. Mr. Sir, you stated Rona didn't need as much guidance. Did she also not receive as much financial support? My father shifted. We supported both our daughters appropriately. Did you pay for Rona's college education? She chose to attend community college. We offered to help with university costs if she had applied. But you did pay for Vanessa's university education? Full tuition, room, and board? Vanessa attended a 4-year institution, yes. For 3 separate enrollments, as she withdrew twice and re-enrolled, is that correct? My father's jaw tightened. She was finding her direction. And each time she withdrew, did you receive any refund on the tuition you had paid? No, but that's not relevant. I would argue it's very relevant to the question of equal treatment. How much did you spend on Vanessa's attempted college education over 6 years? I don't have exact figures. Beth pulled out a document. According to university records and your own financial statements provided in discovery, approximately $120,000. Is that accurate? Approximately, yes. And how much did you contribute to Rona's community college education? The silence stretched long enough to be uncomfortable. Finally, my father said, Rona was financially independent. She didn't ask for help. Because you had told her to take out loans, hadn't you? We encouraged her to be self-sufficient. Did you buy Vanessa a car when she turned 16? We gave her a used vehicle, yes. And Rona? Rona purchased her own vehicle, because you told her to save up for one, correct? My father did not answer. Beth let the silence hang before continuing. Over the past 5 years, have you paid any of Vanessa's credit card bills? We've helped her through difficult periods. How much, approximately? I don't keep track of every dollar spent on my children. Your bank statements show transfers totaling approximately $40,000 to Vanessa over 5 years. Does that sound accurate? My father's face had gone red. We help our daughters when they need it. How much have you transferred to Rona during the same period? Rona has a stable job. She doesn't need financial assistance. So, to summarize, you spent $120,000 on Vanessa's education, which she did not complete. You've transferred approximately $40,000 to cover her debts and expenses over 5 years. You purchased her a vehicle. Meanwhile, you contributed $0 to Rona's education, $0 to her living expenses, and did not purchase her a vehicle. And now you're suing Rona for compensation based on your investment in raising her. Is that an accurate summary? You're twisting the facts, my father said. We raised both our daughters. We provided for both of them. Until they turned 18, yes. After that, you provided substantially for one daughter while telling the other to be independent. No further questions. My mother testified next. Her presentation was more emotional, talking about a mother's love and the pain of seeing your children divided. She cried when describing how I had refused to help Vanessa, how I had turned my back on family when they needed me most. Beth's cross-examination was equally precise. She walked my mother through every instance of differential treatment, every birthday where Vanessa's gifts far exceeded mine, every family vacation I had been excluded from because I was working. Did you ever offer to contribute to Rona's house down payment? Beth asked. We assumed she had it covered, my mother replied. She's always been so capable. Did you offer to contribute to Vanessa's living expenses? Vanessa needed help. Why does needing help entitle someone to more support than someone who works hard to avoid needing help? That's not how family works, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. You help the people who are struggling. And when Rona was struggling, working 2 jobs, eating cheap food, driving an unreliable car, where was the family help then? My mother had no answer. The tears continued, but I found I felt nothing. Just a cold, clear certainty that I was watching a performance designed to manipulate sympathy. Then Vanessa took the stand. She wore her victimhood like armor, describing how difficult her life had been, how she had always struggled in my shadow, how our parents had been harder on her because I had set such an impossibly high standard. Rona made it clear she thought she was better than me, Vanessa said. She judged my choices, looked down on me for needing help. When she bought that house, I thought maybe she'd finally be willing to support family. But instead, she threw it in my face. What did you think would happen when Rona bought the house? My parents' attorney asked. I thought she might let me stay there while I figured things out. Just for a little while, until I found a job and got stable. But she refused. She said horrible things about how I'd never held a job for more than 6 months, about how I was irresponsible. She humiliated me in front of our parents. Beth's cross-examination was brutal in its simplicity. How many jobs have you held for more than a year? Vanessa hesitated. I've had several positions. Please answer the question. How many jobs have you held for more than 12 consecutive months? I don't know exactly. A few. According to your own resume, provided in Discovery, you've had 9 jobs in 6 years. The longest tenure was 8 months. Is that correct? Vanessa's face flushed. Some jobs weren't the right fit. I was finding my path. How much do you currently pay in rent? I'm staying with my parents right now. For how long? About 8 months. And before that? I had an apartment for a while. For 6 months, before being evicted for non-payment of rent, which your parents then paid off, correct? I had some financial difficulties. Have you ever paid your own rent consistently for more than a year? It's expensive to live in this city. Rona manages to pay her rent and now her mortgage. What's the difference? She's willing to sacrifice everything for money, Vanessa snapped. She has no life, no joy. She just works and saves and judges everyone else. Did you ask Rona if you could live in her house? My parents suggested it would be a good arrangement. Did you offer to pay market rate rent? They suggested $300 a month. The mortgage is $1,500, plus utilities and other expenses. You were offering to pay 20% of the monthly cost while occupying 33% of the space. Did you consider that fair? I'm her sister. Family helps family. Did you help Rona when she was working 2 jobs and eating cheap food to save money? I was in school. Rona was also in school while working 2 jobs. Did you offer to help her study? Cover a shift so she could sleep? Contribute anything to her success? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I was dealing with my own challenges. No further questions. Then it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand feeling like I was moving through water, everything slow and surreal. Beth led me through my testimony carefully, establishing my work history, my savings patterns, my complete financial independence from age 18 onward. Did your parents ever offer to help with your college tuition? Beth asked. No. They told me to take out loans if I needed them. Did they offer to help with a car? No. They told me to save up and buy one myself. Did they offer to help with your house down payment? No. They didn't know I was buying a house until after I'd already made the offer. How much money have you received from your parents since turning 18? I thought about it carefully. About $500, total. $100 check for my 21st birthday, $100 check for my 25th birthday, and $300 over various Christmases and gift cards to Target and grocery stores. And during that same period, how much did they give your sister? Based on social media posts, bank transfers they've mentioned, and direct statements they've made, I estimate approximately $160,000. A murmur went through the courtroom. Judge Morrison looked up from her notes. That's a substantial difference, Beth said. Did you ever question why you were treated differently? Many times. I was told Vanessa needed more help, and I was capable of taking care of myself. How did that make you feel? Like my hard work was being punished, like struggling and failing was rewarded while succeeding independently was taken for granted. My parents' attorney stood for cross-examination. His strategy was to paint me as bitter and selfish, someone who kept score and refused to understand that families have different needs at different times. Do you love your sister? He asked. I don't know anymore, I answered honestly. I love the idea of having a sister, but the person Vanessa has become, someone who expects everyone else to fund her lifestyle while contributing nothing, who views my hard work as something I'm doing to her rather than for myself. I don't know if I love that person. That's very harsh. It's very honest. Your parents provided for you for 18 years. Don't you think you owe them something? They fulfilled their legal obligation as parents. I don't owe them reimbursement for choosing to have children, even after everything they sacrificed for you. What did they sacrifice? Please, be specific. Because from where I'm sitting, they sacrificed for Vanessa while telling me to sacrifice for myself. He tried several more angles, but I refused to be baited into emotional responses. I stuck to facts, to timelines, to documented disparities in treatment. When I finally stepped down from the witness stand, I felt drained but clear-headed. Beth called Patricia as a character witness. Patricia testified about working alongside me for 5 years, about my dedication and work ethic, about the countless times I had mentioned saving for a house and the sacrifices I had made to achieve that goal. Did she ever mention her parents helping her? Beth asked. Never. She talked about them, but always in terms of what they were doing for her sister. I got the impression she'd given up expecting anything from them years ago. Dennis, my former grocery store manager, testified about employing me from age 16 to 22. He described a teenager who never called in sick, who took every extra shift offered, who saved her paychecks with focused determination. I offered to promote her to assistant manager when she was 19, he said. She turned it down because the hours would have conflicted with her community college classes. That's the kind of person Rona is. She thinks long-term, makes hard choices, doesn't take shortcuts. Judith, my current supervisor, testified about my performance at the warehouse. She was not effusive, That was not her style, but her clinical assessment of my capabilities and reliability carried weight. "Rona is the person I call when something critical needs to be handled correctly," Judith said. "She doesn't make excuses. She doesn't blame others. She solves problems. That's rare." The testimonies painted a clear picture. A woman who had worked relentlessly for 13 years, saved aggressively, and achieved her goal through pure determination. On the other side, the picture was equally clear. Parents who had enabled one daughter while demanding independence from the other, now attempting to retroactively claim compensation for basic parenting duties. Judge Morrison called for closing statements. My parents' attorney made an emotional appeal about family obligations and the reasonable expectations parents should have after decades of sacrifice. Beth countered with facts and timeline, demonstrating beyond doubt that I had purchased my house entirely with my own earnings while my parents had provided substantially more support to my sister. The plaintiffs claim an implied contract, Beth concluded. But there was no contract, implied or otherwise. There was only a pattern of differential treatment where one daughter was given every advantage while the other was told to fend for herself. Rona did fend for herself. She succeeded through hard work and sacrifice. Now her parents want to punish that success by forcing her to subsidize her sister's continued dependence. This court should not reward that manipulation. Judge Morrison took a brief recess. We sat in the courtroom for 30 minutes while she reviewed the case documents in her chambers. I counted ceiling tiles, trying not to think about the possibility of losing the house I had worked 13 years to buy. When Judge Morrison returned, her expression was unreadable. "I've reviewed the testimonies and documents," she began. "This case presents questions about family obligations, implied contracts, and the extent to which adult children owe their parents compensation for child-rearing expenses." My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. However, after careful consideration, I find no legal basis for the plaintiff's claims. Judge Morrison continued, her voice steady and authoritative in the quiet courtroom. "The plaintiffs argue they provided substantial support during the defendant's childhood and therefore deserve compensation or property rights. However, providing basic necessities for a minor child is a legal obligation, not a contract that creates future debt." My mother made a small sound of protest. The judge's eyes flicked toward her before returning to the documents. "Moreover, the evidence presented demonstrates a clear pattern of disparate treatment between the two daughters. The plaintiffs provided approximately $160,000 in support to their younger daughter Vanessa after she reached adulthood, while providing approximately $500 to their older daughter Rona during the same period. The plaintiffs cannot claim they made equal investments in both children when the financial evidence proves otherwise." My father's attorney stood. "Your Honor, the investment in childhood years." "Counsel, I've heard your arguments. The childhood years are not at issue here. What is at issue is whether the defendant owes her parents compensation or property rights based on that childhood. The law is clear. She does not. Parents choose to have children. Children do not choose to be born. The duty flows one direction." Judge Morrison looked directly at my parents. "What troubles me most about this case is the apparent motivation. The defendant worked 2 jobs from age 15. She put herself through college while working full-time. She saved aggressively and sacrificed considerably to purchase her home. Rather than celebrating this achievement, the plaintiffs filed suit within weeks of the purchase, seeking to transfer benefit to the younger daughter who has received substantially more parental support and demonstrated less financial responsibility." Vanessa's face had gone pale. My mother was crying again, but this time the tears looked different, panicked rather than performative. "The evidence shows the defendant purchased her home entirely with funds she earned and saved independently. There is no legal basis for the plaintiff's claim of implied contract or owed compensation. Furthermore, I find the timing and motivation of this lawsuit to be concerning. It appears designed not to recover genuine losses, but to manipulate the defendant into supporting her adult sister indefinitely." Judge Morrison picked up her gavel. "The case is dismissed with prejudice. The defendant owes nothing to the plaintiffs. Additionally, I am awarding legal costs to the defendant. The plaintiffs will reimburse her attorney fees and court costs within 60 days. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom. I sat frozen, my brain struggling to process what had just happened. Beth touched my arm gently. We won. It's over. My parents' attorney was already gathering his papers, his expression professionally neutral, but his movements tight with suppressed frustration. My father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. My mother continued crying, but now she was looking at me with something that might have been shock or might have been rage. I could not tell which. Vanessa stood abruptly and walked out of the courtroom, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. The sound seemed to break the spell. People began moving, gathering belongings, preparing to leave. My parents approached with their attorney trailing behind. For a moment, I thought they might apologize. Maybe acknowledge what they had done. Maybe show some recognition of how they had tried to steal the one thing I had worked my entire adult life to achieve. Instead, my father said, "You've destroyed this family." The words were so absurd I almost laughed. I destroyed the family? You sued me for buying a house with my own money. You refused to help your sister, my mother said, wiping tears with a tissue. You chose property over family. I chose myself, I corrected. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. And you couldn't stand it. We raised you better than this, my father said. You raised me to be independent and self-sufficient. That's exactly what I am. You just didn't like it when I succeeded without needing you. Beth stepped forward. This conversation is over. Please direct any further communication through my office. My parents left without another word. Their attorney paused long enough to hand Beth a business card, probably for coordination of the legal fees payment, then followed them out. I stood in the empty courtroom, listening to the silence. Beth was making notes, probably documenting details she would need for her files. A bailiff was straightening chairs. Ordinary activities in a space where my entire future had just been decided. Are you okay? Beth asked, looking up from her notepad. I don't know yet. Ask me tomorrow. She smiled. Fair enough. You should know. That was one of the most clear-cut dismissals I've seen. Judge Morrison was not impressed with your parents' case. The bit about awarding you attorney fees? That's unusual. She wanted to send a message. What message? That manipulative lawsuits have consequences. Your parents will have to pay approximately $8,000 in legal fees. It's not a fortune, but it's enough to sting. And it's public record. Anyone who searches their names will see they sued their daughter and lost. We walked out together into the bright Phoenix afternoon. The heat hit like a physical wall after the air-conditioned courthouse. I squinted against the sunlight, fumbling in my purse for sunglasses. Go home, Beth advised. Take the rest of the day off. Process everything. Tomorrow you can start moving forward. I drove home through familiar streets, passing the warehouse where I worked, the grocery store where I had spent countless teenage hours, the community college campus where I had juggled classes and employment. Every landmark was a marker of the journey that had led to this moment. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for a long moment, just looking at the house. My house. Legally, undeniably, permanently mine. No one could take it from me. No lawsuit, no manipulation, no family obligation could strip away what I had earned. I walked inside and stood in the living room, the same space where I had stood on moving day feeling such accomplishment. Now that feeling was complicated by relief and exhaustion and a strange sort of grief. I had won. But winning meant accepting that my parents had truly tried to take my house, that my sister had supported their effort, that the family I had once hoped might someday acknowledge my achievements had instead tried to punish me for them. My phone buzzed. Patricia. How did it go? I called her instead of texting. She answered immediately. Tell me everything, she demanded. I recounted the trial, the testimonies, Judge Morrison's dismissal. Patricia whooped so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I knew it. I told you they had no case. God, I wish I could have seen your parents' faces. My mother cried through most of it. My father looked like he wanted to break something. Vanessa walked out before the judge even finished speaking. Good. They should be embarrassed. Suing your own daughter for buying a house? That's psychotic. We talked for another 20 minutes. Patricia offered to bring over dinner, but I declined. I needed time alone to process everything. After we hung up, I wandered through my house, reacquainting myself with the space that had nearly been taken from me. The guest bedroom where I had set up a home office. The master bedroom with the attached bathroom that had sold me on the house during the first showing. The kitchen with its outdated countertops that I planned to replace eventually, when I saved enough extra money. The backyard with its small patio and desert landscaping. Mine. All mine. Over the following weeks, life settled into a new normal. Work continued with its usual rhythms of shipments and inventory management. I had dinner with Patricia twice, once at a Thai restaurant, and once at her apartment where she made an elaborate pasta dish and we drank too much wine. I replaced the kitchen faucet that had been dripping since I moved in. I planted native flowers in the backyard and watched them struggle briefly before adapting to the desert heat. My parents did not contact me. Neither did Vanessa. The silence was absolute, as if I had been erased from their lives the moment the judge dismissed their case. Sometimes I wondered what they told people about me. Probably some version of events where I was the villain, the ungrateful daughter who had abandoned family in pursuit of selfish ambitions. Then, 6 weeks after the trial, I received a call from Dennis, my former grocery store manager. I had not spoken to him since the trial, though we occasionally exchanged brief pleasantries when I ran into him around town. "Rona, I thought you should know something," he said after we exchanged greetings. "I ran into your mother at the shopping center yesterday. She was with a friend, and I overheard them talking about you." My stomach tightened. What did she say? She was telling this woman about how her ungrateful daughter had sued the family, caused all kinds of trouble, refused to help her struggling sister. She made it sound like you were the one who filed the lawsuit. I closed my eyes. Of course. Rewrite history, shift blame, play the victim. What did you do? I walked over and corrected her, told her friend the truth, that she and your father had sued you, that I'd testified at the trial, that the judge dismissed the case and made them pay your legal fees. Your mother tried to argue, but I just repeated the facts. Eventually, she left. Thank you for that. She's telling people you're mentally unstable, Dennis continued, that you've always had problems, that they tried to help, but you refused treatment. I thought you should know she's spreading this narrative. After we hung up, I sat on my couch feeling a familiar anger kindle in my chest. It was not enough that they had tried to take my house. Now they were trying to take my reputation, spreading lies to anyone who would listen. Painting themselves as concerned parents dealing with a troubled daughter rather than what they actually were. Manipulative people who had tried to steal from their child through legal intimidation. I called Beth. Can they do this? Lie about me publicly? Technically, you could pursue a defamation case if you can prove damages. But honestly, let them talk. Anyone who matters already knows the truth. The court record is public. Their lawsuit and its dismissal are documented facts. Let them tell their lies. Time will reveal the truth. She was probably right, but the anger did not dissipate. I had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and now my parents were trying to destroy my character because they had failed to destroy my independence. Then, a week later, something unexpected happened. I received a message through social media from a cousin I had not spoken to in years, a woman named Kelly who lived in Tucson. We had been close as children, but drifted apart as adults. Hey, Rona, I heard about what happened with your parents and the lawsuit. I wanted you to know I'm not surprised. They tried to pull something similar with my brother years ago. He borrowed money from them for a car repair, and they held it over his head for 5 years, claiming he owed them all kinds of additional compensation. We eventually cut them off entirely. I am sorry they put you through that. You deserved better. I stared at the message. My parents had done this before? To other family members? I responded asking for more details. Kelly called me that evening. It's their pattern, she explained. They help someone, then use that help as leverage for control. When the person resists, they retaliate. My brother finally told them to keep their money and stop taking their calls. They told the whole family he was unstable and ungrateful. Sound familiar? Very familiar. The thing is, most people eventually figure it out. My parents did. Other relatives did. Your parents have burned a lot of bridges over the years. There's a reason we only see them at major holidays. And even then, people keep their distance. We talked for over an hour. Kelly shared stories about family dynamics I had been too young to understand at the time. Instances of my parents offering help only to later demand excessive repayment. Arguments at family gatherings where they played the victim while clearly being the aggressor. A pattern of manipulation that stretched back decades. Why didn't anyone warn me? I asked. Would you have believed us? You were living it. You had to see it for yourself. Kelly paused. But now that you have, you'll probably notice other people avoiding them. Pay attention at the next family event. Watch who keeps conversations short and superficial. I thought about Thanksgiving the previous year, how several relatives had made polite small talk with my parents before quickly moving on to other conversations. At the time, I had assumed they were just busy. Now I wondered if they were strategically limiting exposure. The next major family event was my grandmother's 85th birthday party in late November. It was held at a restaurant in Scottsdale, organized by my Aunt Julia. I almost did not go, expecting it to be uncomfortable given the lawsuit. But my grandmother had always been kind to me in her distant way, and I wanted to see her. I arrived deliberately late, hoping to avoid prolonged interaction with my parents. The party was already in full swing when I walked into the private dining room. My grandmother sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren spanning 4 generations. My parents were there, of course, seated near my grandmother with Vanessa beside them. When they saw me enter, my mother's face tightened. My father looked away. Vanessa stared at me with undisguised hostility. I made my way to my grandmother, giving her a gentle hug and birthday wishes. She patted my hand absently, already distracted by a great-grandchild climbing on her lap. Then I found a seat at the far end of the table, between Kelly and another cousin named Jason. "Brave of you to come," Kelly murmured. "It's my grandmother's birthday. I'm not letting them drive me away." Throughout dinner, I was hyper-aware of my parents' presence. They made a show of being attentive to Vanessa, laughing at her jokes, including her in every conversation. The message was clear. See what you're missing by refusing to fall in line. But I also noticed what Kelly had mentioned. Other relatives kept their interactions with my parents brief and surface level. My Uncle Tom, who had always been friendly with my father, barely spoke to him. My Aunt Julia was polite but distant. Even my grandmother seemed less engaged when my mother tried to monopolize her attention. After dinner, while people were having coffee and cake, my Aunt Julia approached me. "I heard about the lawsuit," she said quietly. "I'm sorry they put you through that. Your uncle and I talked about reaching out, but we weren't sure if you wanted family involvement. It's over now. The judge dismissed it. Good. Your parents have always been..." She paused, choosing words carefully. "Challenging. They mean well, but they have difficulty respecting boundaries." It was a diplomatic way of saying they were manipulative and controlling. I appreciated the sentiment, even if the language was softened. As the party wound down and people began leaving, my mother cornered me near the coat check. "I hope you're happy," she said, her voice tight. You've turned the whole family against us." "I didn't turn anyone against you. I just stopped letting you control me." "We tried to help you understand family responsibility. You tried to steal my house and give it to Vanessa. That's not family responsibility. That's exploitation. Everything was always so easy for you," my mother continued, as if I had not spoken. "You got good grades without trying. You found jobs easily. You saved money without struggle. You don't understand what it's like for people who need more support." The revisionist history was breathtaking. "Easy? Mom, I worked 80 hours a week for years. I ate ramen for dinner so I could save an extra $20. I drove a car that broke down constantly because I couldn't afford anything better. None of it was easy. I just didn't quit when things got hard." "You're so judgmental," she said. "Just like always. Looking down on everyone who doesn't meet your impossible standards. My standards are working for what you want and not expecting others to fund your lifestyle. That's not impossible. That's basic adulthood." My father appeared, placing a hand on my mother's shoulder. "We should go. There's no point talking to her." They left without saying goodbye to anyone, Vanessa trailing behind them. The remaining family members watched them go with expressions ranging from relief to resignation. Kelly came to stand beside me. "See what I mean? They burn bridges and then wonder why people avoid them." In the months that followed, the distance between my parents and me became permanent. I heard through relatives that they continued telling their version of events to anyone who would listen. But the court record was public, and enough people knew the truth that their narrative gained little traction. Vanessa posted vague comments on social media about betrayal and family loyalty. I blocked her accounts and moved on. Some relationships, I realized, were not worth saving. Meanwhile, my life continued to improve. I received a promotion at work, a salary increase that let me start saving for the kitchen renovation I wanted. I adopted a rescue dog, a medium-sized mutt named Copper, who loved the backyard and slept on my bed every night. Patricia and I took a weekend trip to Sedona, my first vacation in 5 years. The house became more than just an achievement. It became a home. I painted the guest bedroom a warm sage green. I hung photographs and artwork on the walls. I learned to cook complicated meals in my kitchen, no longer subsisting on cheap, quick options. I hosted a small dinner party for Patricia, Judith, and a few other co-workers, and felt genuine pride in showing them the space I had created. Occasionally, I would think about my parents and sister. I wondered if they had learned anything from the lawsuit, or if they continued their pattern of enabling and manipulation. I wondered if Vanessa would ever develop the independence she needed, or if she would spend her life seeking someone to fund her existence. But mostly, I focused on my own future. I was 29 now, with a house I owned, a job I was good at, and friendships that sustained me. I had learned to set boundaries and enforce them. I had learned that family was not an excuse for exploitation. I had learned that working hard and succeeding did not make me selfish. It made me capable. One evening, nearly a year after the trial, I sat on my back patio with Copper curled at my feet. The desert sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. My house stood solid behind me, no longer threatened by lawsuits or family manipulation. I had paid down the mortgage slightly ahead of schedule. The kitchen renovation was planned for next spring. I thought about the girl I had been at 15, working her first job at a fast food restaurant and dreaming of independence. She would be proud of where I had ended up. Not just the house or the job or the financial stability, but the strength to stand up to people who tried to take what I had earned. My parents never apologized. Within 6 months of the trial, their relationship with most of the extended family had deteriorated further. Relatives stopped inviting them to events after they caused a scene at another cousin's wedding, criticizing the expense and making pointed comments about family members who refused to help each other. My Uncle Tom finally told them directly that their pattern of manipulation had worn out everyone's patience. They stopped attending family gatherings after that, effectively isolating themselves through their own behavior. Vanessa moved in with a boyfriend who lasted 4 months before realizing she expected him to fund her entire lifestyle. After he left, she moved back in with my parents, where she remained, still searching for someone to support her while contributing nothing. The three of them created their own small bubble of resentment, convinced the world was against them, never acknowledging that their troubles were self-created. I stood on my back patio that evening, watching the desert sunset paint the sky, and realized I was exactly where I was meant to be. Not because revenge had tasted sweet, though the judge's dismissal had brought a fierce satisfaction, but because I had protected what I had built through years of sacrifice and determination. The lawsuit had been their final attempt to take from me, and I had refused to let them. That refusal had cost me a family, but it had preserved something more important: my self-respect, my independence, and the future I had worked so hard to create. Some battles choose you, and when they do, the only option is to fight with every resource you have, knowing that winning means not just keeping what's yours, but proving to yourself that you're strong enough to defend it.